Did you know that your biggest failures might not be the world's fault, but the result of a war raging inside you? Yes, it's you sabotaging your own life, and you don't even realize it. What I'm about to reveal in this video challenges everything you've heard about success and self-confidence. Carl Gustav Jung, one of psychology's greatest minds, discovered something astonishing. Your fears, doubts, and even those strange decisions you make all have a hidden reason. And the solution isn't to fight them, but to use this inner conflict to your advantage. Stick around, because in just a few minutes, you'll learn how to turn your mind and your self-sabotage into your greatest ally. In Jungian psychology, self-sabotage is often understood as the activation of autonomous complexes that work against the ego. A complex, according to Jung, is a constellation of emotionally charged psychic content, often rooted in traumatic experiences, unresolved conflicts, or repressed feelings accumulated over a lifetime. These complexes operate autonomously, acting independently of your conscious will and frequently interfering with your plans, desires, and goals. For instance, someone striving for professional success might find themselves procrastinating, making basic mistakes, or avoiding significant opportunities. These seemingly irrational behaviors are, in fact, manifestations of an unconscious complex carrying unintegrated emotional weight. This complex could be tied to feelings of inadequacy, guilt, or fear of failure, often stemming from past experiences. Jung stressed that instead of repressing or ignoring these complexes, overcoming them requires making them conscious. He stated, "Everything we do not confront within ourselves will eventually be experienced as fate." In the context of self-sabotage, this fate refers to the destructive consequences of failing to integrate these unconscious elements. The root of self-sabotage, therefore, is not external, but internal. It arises from a disconnection between the ego and the unconscious. Repressing the darker aspects of the psyche, what Jung called the shadow, fuels self-sabotage. Anything relegated to the unconscious doesn't disappear. It gains strength and returns in dysfunctional forms. Thus, the first step to overcoming self-sabotage is recognizing and integrating the shadow, a process we'll explore in more depth in the next section. The shadow, one of Jung's most important psychological concepts, represents the repressed or denied aspects of the self. These elements, often seen as negative, are pushed into the unconscious because they conflict with the ideal self-image the ego tries to project. However, the shadow isn't just negative. It also holds unrealized potential, hidden talents, and vital psychic energy. In the context of self-sabotage, the shadow often works indirectly. For example, someone who suppresses their ambition out of fear of being judged as selfish might develop behavior patterns that prevent them from achieving success. In this case, the shadow sabotages because its repressed contents still crave expression. As Jung observed, "He who looks outside dreams, but he who looks inside awakens." Awakening means confronting the shadow and recognizing its hidden motivations. Jung proposed symbolic amplification as a method to face the shadow. This involves exploring dreams, symbols, and fantasies from the unconscious, as they often reveal aspects of the shadow the ego resists acknowledging. For example, dreams about failure or dark figures might point to inner conflicts tied to self-sabotage. These dreams are the unconscious inviting the individual to face the fears and desires fueling sabotaging behaviors. Therapy, particularly Jungian analysis, is another powerful tool for engaging with the shadow. In therapy, individuals can safely explore their shadow with a trained therapist who interprets unconscious symbols and patterns. By making the shadow conscious, they can regain control over what previously undermined them. Another key Jungian concept is the self, the central core of the psyche that encompasses both the conscious and unconscious. While the ego represents the conscious identity, the self is the totality of being, the source of true integration and balance. Self-sabotage often arises from a disconnect between the ego and the self, where the ego strays from the deeper values and goals represented by the self. Jung described individuation as the process of aligning the ego with the self. This involves letting go of illusions of control and acknowledging that the ego is just one part of the psyche, not its entirety. In practical terms, overcoming self-sabotage requires living in alignment with one's core values and authentic goals. One way to explore the self is through active imagination, a technique Jung developed for consciously engaging with unconscious material. In active imagination, individuals visualize symbolic scenes or figures and interact with them to uncover their messages. This helps reveal the motivations behind self-sabotage and integrate these forces into conscious awareness. For instance, someone who repeatedly sabotages their relationships might, through active imagination, discover an unconscious fear of abandonment rooted in childhood experiences. Acknowledging and working through this fear, instead of suppressing it, allows for healthier relationships. Connecting with the self can also be strengthened through contemplative practices like meditation, which calm the ego and create space for the deeper values of the self to emerge. Jung believed that the journey to the self is ultimately a spiritual one, as it involves reconciling opposites and striving for wholeness. Complexes play a crucial role in the dynamics of self-sabotage. For Jung, they function like independent emotional constellations within the unconscious, formed by memories, emotions, and beliefs tied to past experiences. These complexes act as autonomous forces, capable of interfering with our decisions and actions without our full awareness. This is why we often find ourselves repeating harmful patterns, even when we consciously desire something different. Imagine someone who grows up hearing messages that they're not good enough. This experience can create an inferiority complex that gets triggered in critical moments, such as during a public presentation or when offered a promotion at work. The complex whispers to their unconscious, "You don't deserve this," or "You're going to fail." The result? Procrastination, hesitation, or even deliberate self-sabotage, like skipping the commitment or delivering subpar work. To disarm a complex, the first step is to become aware of it. This involves identifying the emotional triggers that activate sabotaging behaviors and questioning the origins of these responses. It's like mapping a trail. Each time you walk it, you understand more about where it begins, the path it takes, and where it ends. This process can be undertaken through self-reflection, therapy, or mindfulness practices, which help you notice thoughts and emotions before they take control. Jung also emphasized the power of recontextualization. Once you identify the source of a complex, revisiting that memory through the lens of the present can reduce its emotional charge. For instance, recognizing that a childhood criticism reflected the insecurities of the person criticizing rather than your own inadequacy can lighten the weight of that experience. Beyond complexes, Jung also explored the role of archetypes in human behavior. These universal patterns, residing in the collective unconscious, shape how we think, feel, and act. The hero archetype, for example, can inspire courage and resilience, while the lover archetype connects us to our passion and vulnerability. However, when these archetypes are not integrated in a healthy way, they can manifest in ways that contribute to self-sabotage. Take the perfectionist archetype, a variation of the hero. When balanced, it drives the pursuit of excellence. But if out of balance, it can lead to a fear of failure and paralysis in the face of important decisions. Similarly, the rebel archetype can spark innovation, but in its shadow form may lead to destructiveness or a refusal to accept guidance. To overcome archetype-related self-sabotage, it's important to identify which archetypes are active in your life. This requires self-awareness and an observation of your patterns and emotions. From there, you can explore the shadow side of these archetypes and work to balance them. If the hero is driving perfectionism, for instance, it might be time to call on the sage archetype, which teaches us to embrace limitations and learn from mistakes. Jung also highlighted the value of symbolic interaction with archetypes. Tools like active imagination or reflective writing can help you engage with these inner forces. By bringing archetypes into consciousness, you transform their unconscious influence into a constructive force. The process of individuation is the cornerstone of Jungian psychology and the ultimate path to overcoming self-sabotage. Jung described individuation as the journey of becoming who we truly are, integrating all aspects of the psyche, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, ego and self. This journey, though challenging, leads to a more authentic life aligned with our deepest values. Jung likened individuation to alchemy, a transformative process where the lead of the psyche, fears, traumas, and destructive patterns is transmuted into the gold of wholeness. In the context of self-sabotage, this means transforming self-destructive behaviors into expressions of growth and personal fulfillment. To achieve individuation, cultivating daily awareness is essential. This involves reflecting on our choices and actions, questioning whether they align with who we want to become. It also requires the courage to face emotional pain that arises when confronting the shadow or revisiting painful memories. As Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Seeking support is another important step, whether through therapy or mentors who can offer external perspectives. Facing self-sabotage alone can be daunting, but sharing the journey with someone who understands the process can make integration more attainable. Finally, it's vital to remember that individuation is not a destination, but a continuous journey. Every small step, every insight, and every victory contributes to building a fuller, more authentic life. What once seemed like an unbeatable force, self-sabotage, becomes an invitation to self-awareness and transformation. By committing to this journey, we discover that we are stronger and more capable than we ever imagined. Jung wisely said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." Overcoming self-sabotage is, above all, an awakening, an opportunity to embrace who we truly are and live more fully and consciously. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a big step toward understanding and overcoming self-sabotage. Now imagine how much more you can grow with the upcoming content I'm preparing for you. Don't waste any time. Subscribe